Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thread to Threshold. I'm your host, Phil Rice. Thank you so much for joining me here on this Saturday, 15th of August, here in the Southern Hemisphere in New Zealand, and to all the global family that are signing in to check out the conversation we're having today. I've got the awesome Stephen and Evan Strong, and I just want to point out that, guys, if you're enjoying this, sorry, I'll just turn the monitor down. If you're enjoying the series of interviews that I'm doing and you would like to support, I've got an option available now where you can make a donation via PayPal using the address there, threadtothreshold@gmail.com. Otherwise, there's also another donation option in the description underneath the video there. All of that support is most graciously appreciated, and I thank you so much. But enough with that. Let's get down to the interview. So I'm going to bring Stephen on, and here he is. Dun, 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 dun. Without further ado, Mr. Stephen Strong, and everyone will be joining us shortly. And now, for those who were who've tuned in, we've already done a previous interview, and that was about a couple of months ago. And so you can go back and tune into that to get some more of the intro information. But I've also got a link to Stephen and Evan's website, forgottenorigin.com, for those who would like to inform themselves a little further. I'll be bringing up that website in a bit there, and we can discuss some of the things that are on there. And I think Evan's just popped out to grab some information. But Stephen, brother, how are you? Thank you so much for joining me today.
It's a pleasure to talk to you again. Evan just got back with the information. I'll just check and see if he's got it. Yeah, he has. Well done, Evan. Yeah, no, it's great to be back. I appreciate you asking us to come back very much so.
No, well, thank you guys, and I know that there's been a lot going on. I mean, there's just a lot going on right now, anyway. And so especially from the perspective of ancient civilizations, spiritual matters, etheric matters, what's happening on a less of a sort of materialistic level, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect it, because we are kind of connected to everything around us. So. Last time we spoke, you were about to do, I think it was your second webinar or a second online seminar regarding alien ancestry and that. And so, I'd love to hear what you guys have been up to these last sort of 6 to 8 weeks, and anything that you want to share with the audience. And later on in the, probably in the next 45 minutes, I'll start offering some questions up from the chat room, if that's cool. So, brother, if you just want to go for it.
Well, a fair bit. It's sort of funny, since this change in global circumstances, that it seems that we've found a new way of communicating the information, which is more effective than what we were doing, which was online conferences, which were highly successful. But, we were reaching maybe 100 people. This seems to work better. So we've been doing the online conferences, the two you mentioned, and we've got another one coming up. When's that coming up, Evan?
End of August.
End of August on a Sunday, isn't it? Yeah. And in that, there's two parts I'd like to talk about. But I suppose to begin with, what we really do need to talk about is the fact that there's an underlying, how can I put this, underlying motivation behind every one of these presentations up and until the 21st of December. Our idea was to present different people around the same theme and run it off in different tangents about that prophecy. So I suppose to begin with, it's fairly important we give a little bit of a rundown for anyone that didn't hear what we spoke about last time. Would that be fair, mate, to sort of run over that, because some may not have heard it?
Please.
And I can say that we've got more information on the prophecy. We seem to get a bit all the time, don't we?
Yeah, it comes in every couple of weeks.
Yeah, and look, let me start by saying, mate, it's tricky, because we're in contact with 4 different people who are acting as interlocutors between the elders at Uluru and us. So the drawback is that if I was to tell you, have Evan and I sat down and spoken to one of these elders face to face, the answer is no. They're not doing it that way. There's a fair degree of security and secrecy about what they're doing, and then some parts are open. So what we are finding is, with one exception, no matter who tells us this story and tells us this comes from an uncle, this comes from this person, and they've told us this part, it's always consistent. So that part's very important. So what do we have is we can have before and after. And in the before, Evan, we're okay, aren't we? Sweet on before, after. Oh, man, it's a dog's breakfast and they're all fighting about it. But that's not important. It's in before that's the important part. So this starts about 3 years ago when an elder rung me up. And primarily what I'd like to do is to go over that, what he said, then add one or two things that have changed it slightly since then. But in basically, for all intents and purposes, what Brendan told us at the start, it still resonates. None of it's really changed, just the minor details. Now, primarily what he was telling us is on the 21st of December this year, and it's now not even 9 o'clock as we've told people. We've been given more information since then. I do apologize because last time in your show, I think we said 9 o'clock. That was wrong. It's 9:04.
Oh.
Very specific about this, mate. Yeah. Not 9 o'clock. Throw that. There's 240 seconds out there. It's 9:04.
It's now, a long time to hold your breath for, man.
Yeah, it is an extra 4 minutes. Yeah. So for those people who started a bit early at 9, don't worry. Just keep going. You'll pick it up. We'll be there at 9:04. He said they needed 4 minutes. I don't know what this meant to make the final preparations. I have no idea what that means. Okay. So what's going to take place? Well, it's Pleiadian. Now, my understanding is there's a magic box. Now, I'm not sure. I've been told by many people a Pleiadian ship is coming. It started with Brendan, and that's been consistent. But I'm not. In fact, I'm fairly well convinced it will be coming after the event, not before. Okay. So what's supposed to take place is that the elders will then create a ceremony. They know exactly what they're supposed to do. And they are about to get a hold of what they call devices, don't they, Evan?
Yep.
That can open this magic box. And that's their word, not ours. I wouldn't use it. And by the way, for those who think they're going to wander off to Uluru in the next week or so and look for a pirate's chest and find all this, it's not a pirate's chest. It's not even a box, to be honest. My understanding, and I might be wrong, is it's a rock. And when you go to Uluru, you know what that is. It's a big rock. And you know what it's surrounded by? Other rocks. Now, therefore, if you think you can find the right rock, good luck. Anyway, they're doing that. It's not our job. That's theirs. What they say is going to happen is they're going to do ceremony. They'll use the devices to open the box. And then if the box can feed off the energy of the beings that are positioned in Australia and possibly New Zealand, because New Zealand has come into play in this a lot more than we thought. Irrespective of that, if there are enough people in this continent and maybe New Zealand as well, and the number is in 6 figures, it's a lot, and they are positive, not fearful, still believing in the fact there's a change and never going to give up and will not let a negative thought impinge, then their energy will then go into this box and it will magnify what that energy is and then basically turn on Uluru. And then what that does is it then sends an energy surge along ley lines to 5 sites in Australia and 1 in New Zealand. Now we know 2 of the sites in Australia. We are guessing about the one in South Australia. We don't know the one in Armandland or Kimberley, and we have no idea where it is in New Zealand. So we know bits of it, okay? It's on a need-to-know basis. Then what happens is that then sets off a trip switch that turns on all the ley lines, all the sacred sites in the planet. And then what happens is the Earth, which is vibrating between 7 on the Schumann resonance up to 150, will be locked in on that higher vibration. And then what takes place is we then have 2 vibrations reacting simultaneously on this planet, a lower vibration and a higher vibration. And over a period of time, which we've now found out is longer than we first thought, souls will be drawn to either of those 2 vibrations. They don't have a choice in this. You can't say, well, I don't want to go to the low one. I've now realized after the event, I want to go to the high one. It won't do it that way. Your soul will lock you in. Because after that event, I originally thought that was the last moment in which a soul could choose. We both thought that, didn't we?
Yeah.
We've now been told no. From that point on, as every day passes, it becomes harder and harder for a soul that is sitting in negativity and a lower vibration. It becomes harder for them to ascend, but not impossible. And then there becomes a point in this equation where, there's a point in this equation where the lower vibration and all the souls locked into it then vanish. Now, I'll talk more about what happens next because we're getting different stories in.
Yeah.
They're not the same. And one is far more palatable than the other, but there's other people I've asked who are going to try and check and clarify that. And by the time we do the presentation, I'll have a lot more about what comes after, because our presentation is called our Alien Ancestry, What Comes Next. So we do both sides of it. Now, with what comes next, one of the elders said this to me, and it makes a lot of sense to me. Nobody really knows what comes after the event. All they do know is this. If there are enough enlightened souls that aren't fearful, and I can tell you they're going to try their hardest to make everyone on the planet fearful. That's the whole point of this. Then that means the earth will heal itself from within. But if there aren't, then the earth will heal itself anyway. And the difference is that one will be catastrophic. This one, the fact that the magnetic North Pole is hanging around in Siberia on its way to China, it will right itself and go back. The fact that the earth is actually wobbling, and the scientists will say it, but they won't mention what it means, that will start to balance out again. The whole of the earth is unbalanced through so many things, including mining. It's not balanced anymore. And as a result of this, it will have to correct itself. Our story is, what we've been told is there are two ways this will happen. It will happen with grace and elegance, where each human is accountable for their own actions, and all of the animals on this planet that have not made a mistake, that have lived in accord with nature, do not get punished. That's the best way. The worst way is that everything gets punished, and the animals don't deserve it. I've got no issue with humans being wiped off the planet. I've got to be honest, as a collective, we deserve it. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, since humans left Chernobyl, what's happened to the animals, Evan?
They've all come back, including some rare species they didn't think were still alive.
They thought they were gone. They thought they'd lost them. But since the humans left Chernobyl, they've all come back and they're flowering, which means nature is telling us right now, if two things, if it's got IUM at the end or sapien, put the IUM in, whether it's radium, strontium, it doesn't matter. It is less dangerous to the planet than humans are. Well, that can't continue. If it's got to that stage, and every human should know that, Chernobyl is thriving because we're not there. Anything else it would manage and cope with, but not us anymore. We've gone past that line in the sand. So from my point of view, if we all get wiped out, fine. But not the animals. They all do it properly. You ever seen an animal break nature's law? Never. They always obey the laws of nature. That was the only thing we were asked to do, and we don't do it. So that's roughly what the prophecy is. Now, there's a lot more I could add to it, which I will in the next presentation. And what we do is every one of them, we always begin with that because that's our base each time. So that's the first part of that. Now, the presentation we're doing this time, we're going to look at America in some detail. And we're bringing someone in from America. I think that's TJ, isn't it?
Yep.
She's going to be talking about that. And we're also going to do something completely different. I want to look at this from another point of view, which is way back at the beginning, historically. And to do that, I want to look at Christianity. You've got to remember something, that the Bible is a collection of oral myths. All ancient scriptures are collections of oral myths and history. There weren't history books written 5,000 years ago. Pliny the Elder, he started writing history as a separate being and thing, and it started to be recorded then. But before then, it wasn't. So within those ancient scriptures is our past and our history. But you've got to look through it. And what we're doing this time is we're going to look at two parts of it. We've got Paul Wallace, who is the Archdeacon of Canberra. I think it's Anglican, isn't it, Evan?
Yeah.
Right. He's written a book. He's read Genesis, and he's told us in Genesis it's absolutely positive. It's all about aliens coming in and alien genes and hybridizing with us. And he's written a book about it, and it's obviously caused some, how can I put it, some interest within the clergy. And most of us been, I think what he told us is a lot of his friends in the clergy says, I'm still going to be your friend, but I'm not reading your book. So it's caused a lot of issues, but it's the truth. So we're going to bring him in, and we're going to look at Gnosticism and the fact that Gnosticism is primarily the dreaming. And we're going to be quoting from one of the great philosophers, original philosophers, Big Bill Neji, from one of his books. And we're going to take passages from the Gospel of Thomas and passages from Bill Neji, and you're going to find out same thing every time. So if you want to know where all religion comes from, and that's what we're looking at here, it comes from the dreaming. So we're going to chase that up too. So the purpose of each one of these ones we do is to keep looking at that main theme of the fact there is going to be a change, and then work out how do we cope with it, where do we come from, and where are we going. So primarily, it's going to be a step-by-step equation, and then as we go further along, we're going to start pulling in, and we've got one lined up, an international group we're going to do, which will include Michael Tellinger. He's going to talk about Ubuntu, which obviously is about what comes next. Klaus Stirner and Dr. Rita Louise, we're going to do some international ones and look at the same story from an international perspective. So that's been one of the things we've been working in. I'll just take breath on that. So, what else can we talk about? Look, one thing I would like to talk about, and that's simply because it won't be a major topic in our next presentation, is I'm writing an article right now about some science, which, as you know, we like to do science, and critics love it, don't they? They really enjoy that part. They wish we wouldn't. But we've got some readouts now of these rings that we've been collecting. Are you sort of aware of what we've got there at the moment, mate?
I do recall a response where oh, I think you guys are back running. Let's put you in my ear. Okay. Yeah, it's just coming through the through your speakers there. No, I do recall you were talking about you've got possession of a ring that's identical to the one that was worn by the chap who entered into Tutankhamun's into his tomb, and it's the one thing that protected him, you know, when everyone else was sort of starting to drop around him. And then there's of course there's two other rings as well. And so yeah, if you want to update us on that, that'd be cool.
Yeah, we have got some updates, because what's happened is that more rings have come in, and we now have 2 rings from Atlantis and 3 from Lemuria. Now, that's a pretty heady statement to make, because as you know, and we've only got to look up Wikipedia and you'll find out that Atlantis is mythical. It doesn't exist, ladies and gentlemen. So therefore, how can we say we have 5 rings from Atlantis and Lemuria, because they don't exist? Right, so it's a bit of a claim to make, but what's happened now is we've now got the chemical readouts of all 5 of these rings, and when you've got a readout of 5, you can start to make comparisons and generalizations. But when you have 1 or 2, you don't know, do you, for sure? I mean, you've got a little bit, but you're not sure. It could be a freak. But if you get, say, 3 rings that have all got orichalcum as opposed to 1, then it's very difficult 3 times over to say, no, this isn't right. So here's the trick with this. To begin with, Phil, I've got to explain something. If you go to the venerable Wikipedia, as we all do when we want to find out anything and verify it properly, you will find that not just Atlantis is mythical, Phil, so is orichalcum, right? And you know what the word mythical means in a dictionary, or from the right wing, it means that it's a load of crap. Agreed? That's primarily what they're saying, but they tolerate it and mention it. And they do concede in their article they put up that, yes, Plato, Homer, Pliny the Elder, they all said Atlantis was there. But, you know, don't worry about that. I mean, that's just them having a bad day. But us being Wikipedia, we know best. But there is a problem with this, Phil. On the same posting where they say that orichalcum is mythical, okay, it also has a picture further down of something called orichalcum. Now, I have a problem with this. If it's mythical on that posting, on the same page, they did a picture of it and said, there it is. So can you see my problem with the word mythical? Because it started at the beginning of the page as a load of crap. And then at the end of the page, we see ingots. Now, these ingots were found in a shipwreck, a Roman shipwreck in Sicily in 6th century BC. Now, this is important because what it means is, what they can say is orichalcum is mythical in Atlantis, but there is a bit of it that isn't, that the Romans have. So that bit is Roman orichalcum, which means we can still put it up. Can you see how we get away with that, Phil? Because we're okay there, aren't we? Because the Romans had it. But you've got to remember something. Pliny the Elder told us that the mines were exhausted and there was none left. Plato spoke about orichalcum in the past tense in 4th century BC. So the fact the Romans had some in the 6th century BC is not inconsistent with the story of orichalcum. But it doesn't mean that it wasn't also in Atlantis. What it means is they were obviously either, by the way, I don't think it was a mine. I think it's far more complex than this. I think they mix each one of these together separately. There's no such mine because no one's ever found the ore of orichalcum, the 5 things in it. So what we have is orichalcum, and they list what's there. So you go to any paper written on in the planet, and they will never have those 5 things listed. So yes, it doesn't exist. So yes, we got a ring that was found 1.5 meters beneath the surface in a gold mine in Australia that was recovered. We got it. I found out that it turned out that it was orichalcum, had exactly the same readout as the one there. Now here's the difference, mate. The one that is in Sicily is the one we used as a comparative base because the scientists will accept it, won't they? Because they've already given it a name and it's got a tick in Wikipedia, which means I'm okay with mainstream on that. So we use that as our base. And that's what we did. Now, with the first ring, the rule is this: for the Sicily ingots, all the copper is greater than 75%. All the zinc is less than 25%. And the 3 trace elements of lead, iron and nickel is 5 to 10%. So there's your base, okay? But remember, this was Roman and used for coins. We believe there's 3 grades of orichalcum. They don't know that because they just have the crude base to begin with. And we believe that is the crudest base. Why? Because it was used for coins and used by the Romans. It wasn't used in the inner temple of Poseidon. It wasn't used to line the temples and the great structures of Atlantis. This was used for coins. So what we found is when we looked at the orichalcum in the Atlantean one, the percentages were completely different. And what we found there was that the zinc and copper in there was 99.53% of the whole ring. Not 90 to 95%, but 99.53%. So the copper and zinc was a greater percentage. But the copper was less than 75%. And all of the orichalcum copper, the Roman stuff, is greater than. And the zinc was 25.57% in the ring. And for all of the ingots, it was less, 5 to 10, sorry, it was less than 20%. So those 2 things weren't the same. But the big difference is this. The 3 trace elements made up less than 0.5% in the ring and 5 to 10% in the ingots. So what do we find from that? Not the same mine. It may well be the same ore, but you have metal signature. As you know, even with gold, you can trace where gold is because there are signatures there. It is not the same. Here, the dramatic difference there makes it not even close to the same. So what we there have is absolute proof. Well, it's still orichalcum, but it's not the same. So then what happens is we've now got a second ring that comes from Atlantis. Now, the reason it comes from Atlantis, I'm going to hold this up now. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it properly. I went the wrong way. How am I doing this, Em? Can you see that? No. Oh, you can. Right, see that insignia there? See that curled insignia? There's 6 of them. That was on the first ring. Exactly the same sign was on the Atlantis ring 1. And that sign is the sign the Berbers used for Atlas, the son of Poseidon. And on the first Atlantean ring, we had 5 circles of different diameters with straight lines and horizontal lines above and below. Well, of course, Atlantis in the sanctum was made of 5 rings of decreasing side with straight and vertical roads and bridges across it. So we noticed that this was the same. So we had it analysed. And guess what? The copper and zinc content was 99.36%. And the other one was 99.53%. So they're virtually the same in those 2 base elements. And then you've got the 3 other elements. And we found the iron and the nickel and the other one made up less than 5% again. But there was one big difference. The iron was virtually the same. The nickel in the second ring is twice as much, but the lead wasn't there. There was no lead. They put gold in there. Now, people might say, oh, well, it's not orichalcum now because it's the gold. It should be lead. That's what orichalcum is. You've got to remember something. The inner temple of Poseidon and Cleito was all lined in orichalcum everywhere, on the floors, in the ceilings, even on the column that Poseidon and Atlas wrote their laws and their observations on. But just above that column was a cap of gold. Now, if this is solely Atlas's ring and it's meant to represent the inner temple, they must have taken out some lead there and put in the gold so that it represents Atlas and the inner temple. So we think they swapped it. Now, what we found with the Lemurian rings, the 3 of them, is 2 of them have orichalcum completely. Same thing again, but it comes from Angkor Wat. Now, this is where it gets interesting because think about this. How can they have the same material, but we're finding it both at Angkor Wat and Sicily? Now, I'm going to hold up one now. This one, I'll try and hold it up properly. This was originally all brown. And when we rubbed it off, we started to realize, my God, it's the same, exactly the same as Atlantis 1. So that one there has in it 75.22% zinc and copper. And it has 3 smaller elements. And those smaller elements are iron, nickel, and lead. And they are less than 5%. I can also tell you this one has 71% copper, less than the 75% from Sicily, and has 23.69% zinc, more than what they have in Sicily, so we know it doesn't fit there, but it fits exactly the same pattern as the Atlantean ring. But this has got those 5 elements, but this is what's really interesting, Phil. It also has 1.12% tin. Now, what's interesting is Lemuria 3, which also has all of orichalcum, has tin in it also. And guess what the percentage of tin in number 3 is? 1.12% again. What are the chances, Phil, that you could make 2 rings and put exactly to 2 decimal points the same percentage of tin in there and it be a coincidence? I don't think it is. Remember, 2 and 3 are orichalcum plus something. Okay, so I want to just very quickly talk about 2 things in both these Lemurian rings. Let's look at number 1 that has done the same thing as Atlantis 2. It's taken out one of the trace elements. It took out nickel. This one has the copper and the zinc. Number 1 has the copper and the zinc. It has the iron and it has the lead. No nickel. It has the tin, of course, at 1%, around about 1% of tin, as all Lemurian rings do. But then it has something else. It has 8.76% lead, which softens it when you put that much lead in there. So guess what they put in there to harden it up? Titanium. 1.15% titanium. Now, there's a problem there. Did you know titanium has the greatest density to strength ratio of any metal on the planet? It's got the best non-corrosive qualities of any metal on the planet. So if you put zinc in there and you soften that metal, you've got to put something in to make it hard, haven't you? And did you know 24 karat gold, it is harder than 14 karat gold because it's less than 1% titanium. They put it in there to harden it. It hardens anything. But 24 karat gold has less than 1%. This has got more. Now, here's the trick. We only started using titanium in a laboratory in 1932. This is inside an Angkor Wat ring, which is incredibly old, thousands of years old, but they're using titanium to harden the metal. A metallurgist would do that today. Did they do it thousands of years ago? The history books would say no, they didn't, but they did here. Now, somebody might say they fluked it, but they've got a problem with that because I know it's in Lemurian 3. And guess what's in Lemurian 3? It's got the orichalcum again and the tin. Remember, it's got to have tin. And remember, it's got exactly the same amount of tin to 2 decimal points as 2. But they put something new in there. Not titanium. No, not that, which was discovered in 1791 and first used in the laboratory in 1932. No, they put in chromium, which was discovered in 1797 for the first time ever. And they started to put it in metals in the 20th century. And lo and behold, guess what? It's got the second highest density to strength ratio of any metal and the second highest non-corrosive elements of any metal. And the one that's in front is titanium. So there we have 2 rings where they've put a hardener in. Now, why did they put a hardener in this one? And the reason is simple. Lemuria 2 is 95.22% copper and zinc. Lemuria 3 is 95.25% copper and zinc. Is that another coincidence? No, but here's the trick. In this one, the zinc is 35%. It's got the lowest copper of any of them. That zinc powder makes it weaker. So they put chromium in this time to strengthen it up. Now, what I'm picking up here, mate, and I could do a lot more about the rings, but we'll leave it at that. What I'm picking up here, Phil, is the metallurgist who was making these rings with orichalcum as a base. Base 1, the crappy Roman rubbish, right? Where we don't use those 3 trace elements homeopathically. Base 2, we use the copper and the zinc. Remember how copper is the most magical metal there is, which can kill coronavirus within 10 seconds of it being placed there. They put that in as their base, and they put 3 in with drops, and they did with Atlantis 1 and Atlantis 2. So what we're finding is that's the second level. Then the third level is you take the orichalcum base, then you add things to it, and you take things off there, and you work with it. And what we're finding is because the copper readout on these 5 rings is different. Every one of them is different. It goes from 91% to 59%. The zinc readout goes from 7% to 35%. Man, they are taking these elements together and mixing them up and creating different rings that have a strong, and I won't talk today about the magical elements of these rings, mate, because I'm writing a whole chapter on what these rings have done since we've had them. But I'm keeping that separate from the science. So people can't say, oh, you're just making up all this stuff. No, we're not making up the science. These are the proper readouts. And what I'm saying is, how can Angkor Wat, which is thousands and thousands of years old, have chromium and titanium in their metal only when they've weakened it? Now, remember my one, which purely has orichalcum, the one I just showed you there, it has nothing to strengthen it because nothing was taken out. They didn't take out the nickel. They didn't overload it with lead in one, or they didn't overload it with zinc. It was in roughly the same proportions. If you look at Atlantis 1, it's 73% copper. Lemuria 2, this one is 71.5% copper. Atlantis 1 is 25% zinc. This one's 23.69. They're virtually the same. So no titanium in this one, no chromium in this one, but in the other 2 from Lemuria, more is added. And when I'm putting in titanium and chromium, that is more refined than the Atlantean rings. So here's the moral of the story, mate. We've dealt with these Atlantean rings. My understanding is they're all evil. there is no good Atlantean ring. And a lot of people have written to us and says, I'm the owner of the ring. We've had so many people say, I made the ring, you've got to send it to me. And I'm not joking, plenty. We don't even know they are. It happens all the time. In fact, the person who works with us says, I wish I had a gold coin for everyone who says that the ring is theirs. And that was Leah, didn't she? Mm-hmm. I can tell you something about these rings. Evan, is this true? Remember this ring here? This particular ring I've got now, Evan, for the first time, he looked at it. And what did you say to me?
Ooh, I wouldn't mind playing around with that one and touching it and putting it on my finger. And I've never had any thought of doing that with the other rings.
And the rocks, hundreds of rocks and skulls. He never said that. He just said this with this one. Well, and so did my wife.
I kind of wanted to touch it.
My wife said the same thing. She said, I feel a calling for this ring too. I'd like to put it on my finger. So we asked this ring and said, is it okay? He said, oh, yeah, put it on straight away. Yeah, I'm happy. I'm calling him. Yeah, do that. Then I asked the Lemurian ring what would happen. He said, oh, they'll both die. And then we asked the ring, if Evan puts it on and Del puts it on, will they die? And they said, oh, yeah, it will. It will die, didn't it? Yeah, no problem. That's what I do. So what I'm trying to say is, ladies and gentlemen, these rings here from Lemuria are pure good. They were made, this is the highest level. The two rings we have from Atlantis, the other one, which was the good ring, has been cut and it's been soiled and it was destroyed by Atlas. That's why that a statue you see of Atlas holding the world on his shoulders is not a sign of strength. People don't know he led an insurrection, a revolution in the temple and was punished for doing it. And the punishment was you now carry the weight of the world on your shoulders for what you've done. He cut the good ring and let evil inside it. This one here, my wife calls it a trickster. It would kill you, but with a smile on your face. But I'm using it for something that it can help me for. But I've got to be very careful with this thing because it's a load of rubbish. It just doesn't have a good nature about it. And what I'm trying to say is people who are looking for Atlantis don't. There's nothing good there. We've got Atlantis, haven't we, Evan? It nearly killed us. And we'll talk about that in our presentation. And I'm going to write about this briefly in the article I'm writing. That first ring tried to kill us. On the second one, we're very happy. If Del and Evan put this on, they'd be dead now. So tell me, honestly, guys, remember one thing. Atlantis fell apart. The only thing we know, we don't know where it was. We don't know how it fell apart, but we know it fell apart because of its own mistakes. And we're doing them again. So my question is, why would you want to look for Atlantis for inspiration when Atlantis is the inspiration of what we're doing? So don't look for the magic in Atlantis because it's broken. I can tell you that now. So the people who are saying, oh, no, I was an Atlantean leader. When I hear that, what do we both think? Okay, when? We're not saying you're all bad, but we know there's a lot of bad things that happen there, and most of it happened with the people running the show and they were wearing these things. So be very careful with that. So there is some information we found, Phil, in relation to this ring. Because we've got the 5 plus the readout, we can start to make some real observations about the science inside the rings and the effects of the rings. I can tell you this much. If you want to get a good idea for the effects of the rings and what they can do, read a book. It's a fictional book. What would the fictional book be called, Evan?
Lord of the Rings.
And who would be the author?
Tolkien.
And what was Tolkien? Was he a novelist or a linguist?
He was a linguist or a professor of linguistics.
And what language did he study in the greatest detail, Evan?
The Scandinavian languages.
And where did he get the myth about 3 rings from?
Scandinavia, Finland, that kind of area.
It's another myth, like the myth of orichalcum in Wikipedia, isn't it? It's the same myth as the one Wikipedia talks about with their orichalcum. We believe that actually what Tolkien was writing was about these 3 rings we're talking about. We have 2 of them. We have the good one. We have the one, by the way, this one that did want to kill Evan and my wife has a good nature about it. It has a good side to it, but you've got to dig a bit deeper. But it is there. I wear it all the time now. But as for the first ring, Evan hasn't seen it in 3 months. I put it away. It's really, it should not be ever in anyone's hands again, ever. But in Australia, we don't have a volcano, so I can't climb up there and chuck it in there. You guys got any volcanoes over there?
We do actually, but we actually got activity here. You guys should come over and put your feet in the hot tub. We've got plenty of places here where you can throw a ring into. That's for sure. I had a question for you guys in regard to so I've done a bit of my own research into things like ormus, which is the monatomic gold, about creating resonance with, and Mr. Tallinger talks about this quite a bit as well with the stone circles and things of this nature as well. So I'm quite up to the part with that. And as a musician, I'm aware of resonance and, to an extent as well. But, I often wonder if when certain metals are mixed in proportions, if that is because of a specific, or it alludes to potentially, possibly, geographical locations and lines, including the concept of ley lines and energy grids and things like this, which there are many of these grids. And if the composition of the metals are, in a sense, different because of their geographic locations or of this nature. I don't know if you can share anything on that.
Yeah, you're right. You've got that perfectly right, mate. I mean, honestly, you've got a real pattern with the two Atlantean rings. 99.5% is the base. Then you put in the little drops, and the drops vary. In one case, they took out lead and put in gold. In the other case, they left the three as they are. So you're exactly right. So we can say that's come from the Atlantean region. But when we go to the other one, the tin tells us, doesn't it? That tin, which is 1.6%, 1.12%, 1.12% in each one of them. That tells us, okay, we've got this from Angkor Wat. So, yes, we are getting that. And I think you've stumbled onto the real issue here, which is that I've got another ring, Lemuria 1, has got exactly the same monkey and the same elephant. Exactly the same, and it looks exactly the same, but its makeup is so different from 2. It's the most dissimilar. 2 is so similar to Atlantis 1, and 1 is nothing like it. Nothing like it all. It's got 8.78% lead, and the next highest readout of lead, which is in 2, is 2.39%. So even though these two rings are virtually the same, except this one's got 6 animals and the other one's got 4, they've been made so differently, they must have different powers. My suspicion is, in that case, this has 6 animals, and the other one has 4. I suspect it could be the female ring. The titanium may be the female ring, and this could be the male ring. Because my belief is that maybe the male's rings don't have titanium or chromium, because number 3, I think, is a female ring, because Roz has got that and wears it and is drawn towards 1 and 3, but was never drawn towards 2. And I believe that maybe we probably need a couple more of these to be sure, but I mean, 3's not bad. I mean, we've got 6 to compare from now, and what we do know is that orichalcum is the base, and it goes from the, and I think even researchers, there was one researcher said there were 2 strands of orichalcum way back in the 1850s, didn't they?
Yeah.
He was nearly right. There were 3. And the 3rd strand is the purest, but it also has what you've said, magic inside it. Now, we don't have half an hour right now, and I prefer to save that for the actual talk, because what I try to do is I do all the science in one part, and I take the magic away from it so that people can then say, okay, if I don't believe in the magic, I can still believe in the science. I don't like mixing them up, and I won't do it today, but I can tell you, if I could explain to you how that ring, and I won't today, I can tell you now, the way we found that ring was utterly and only through magic. And when I do the full story, and we'll save that for the day, won't we, Evan? We'll do that later. I'm sorry, mate, we can't give everything away. We've given a lot away.
Great to catch up.
The way we got that ring, when I got that ring, it was the only time I got an object where I was fully on side with it before I got it, because I'm always very cynical. I hold it for days before I figure out, is it legit or not? I'm always trying to find a fault in it. I came to that ring 110% convinced of its genuineness because of the way I got the ring, because there's no way on the planet that there is any logical explanation except the fact that a ring contacted a person and gave them directions to find this ring. That's what happened. Another ring, number 1, found number 2 and found its website address and gave it to another person. and that person wasn't even near the computer at the time and was told to go to the computer and type in an address she's never written in before and was given instructions by another ring.
It's very postmodern of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that's how we got the ring. And we had no idea where it was, and it was never in a site you'd ever look up, and that was pure magic. There's no other word for it, because how in God's name does a piece of metal talk to a human? Now, for me, I've got an issue with this. When I first got this ring, when I was told about him, I didn't believe in him, because I'm a black fella. I believe that wood, organic materials, we can put magic inside it. But I didn't believe at the time that you can take 5 different, and I think it's 5 different elements, melt them together, put them inside a furnace and make magic out of it. It never made sense to me. And I remember I gave this ring once to an elder, didn't I, Evan? He put it in his hand. I said, "What'd you get from that?" He said, "Nothing." I said, "I thought you would have." He said, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're so locked into blackfella magic, mate, you won't even let whitefella magic in." He said, "You just think, you're thinking like me, didn't you? You just think if it's in bones or it's in rocks or in wood, yeah, it could be there, but not in this." He said, "Yeah, same way." I said, "Well, you're wrong. You're being a little bit racist here, bud, because you think all magic belongs to blackfellas. It's not right. Copper is the magic metal in this. We've worked that out. Remember, copper is the most amazing antiseptic. It will kill any germ on this planet. Just put it on there and it dies. No other metal does that. This is different. And that's why the main base in every one of these rings is copper. Okay, and then what I believe is, because you go from 91% to 50%, no, man, it wasn't an ore as such. It was, we are now going to make this bring up with this amount. We're going to take this much of this one, this much of this one. It's like an alchemist, a magician, creating this one step at a time, saying, "Now go to my book here. What should I be putting in here? I need more lead in this one. That's going to weaken it. What shall I do now? It's weakened. I'll put in titanium. Oh, I can't put that in. That hasn't been discovered yet, has it, Evan? No, I couldn't put that in. I can't put titanium in. I'll put chromium in. Oh, no, I can't put that in. That hasn't been discovered either." The problem is, the presence of these things in the rings is a scientific impossibility according to every book and every university on the planet. And it means, and I've said this in the article I'm writing now, which will be out in about a week, it means if orichalcum exists in all the forms it does, then so does Atlantis and Lemuria. You can't have one without the other. And Plato made it clear. And honestly, if I'm going to believe any politician today or Plato, I know who I'm picking. I'm sorry, it's a no-brainer. I believe in Plato and I don't believe in any of them. You've got a pretty nice prime minister there, but if I put her up against Plato, it's still going to be Plato first, mate. Because he was taught one thing, never to lie. That's why they killed him, didn't they? In Greece, because he never told a lie. He wouldn't tell a lie. And he actually said, "I'll take the hemlock because I can't tell a lie." So therefore, if he tells me this is orichalcum and it's in Atlantis, it is. Now what we've got is we've got the markings on the first ring of Atlas and Poseidon. I got 6 markings of Atlas on this ring. Come on, boys and girls, what do you think it is? And we've done the readout. It's exactly what it's supposed to be. And from these ones, they come from Angkor Wat. But remember, go back 7,000, 8,000, 10,000 years ago, Angkor Wat was a coastal town in a place called Lemuria. Australia, New Zealand are remnants of Lemuria. So's Hawaii and Easter Island. It was a massive continent, but it sunk slowly, unlike Atlantis that went into day and a night. So from Lemuria, when this happened, when it did sink, we moved. We moved around. We went to the small islands that stayed up. We've got dreaming stories about this where they say everything was covered and blackfellas went around in canoes and picked everyone up and we landed back on the islands again. And the main remnant of Lemuria is Australia. And that's why these rings have come back here. And that's why the Atlantean ring was buried in Hill End. Why there? Because it all starts here. And we believe that even the Atlantean rings, remember this, that Roman galleon was bringing ingots to Rome. Remember, that means that the ingots were already made. Not in Rome, but somewhere else. So you're telling me the Romans, 6th century BC, were building massive foundries off their area. That's the thing you've got to think about too. How come they were carrying the ingots unless they've already been melted before? Maybe they were finding the residual ingots that weren't used by the Atlanteans that were hidden somewhere. Because it wasn't as if they normally, when a ship, like in Australia, When we sell our iron ore to Japan, we put it in a big boat and then they make it up. But here, the Romans were taking the ingots already pre-made to Rome, not from Rome. So there are so many questions about orichalcum. And now you've got 6 of them, ladies and gentlemen. The questions are, the technology they used is only just being reached today. And we know it's there because it's in the rings. You can't argue with it. And the rings are ancient. So that science we've brought in sort of about equals the fact that the stuff we've got with the skulls, insofar as the skulls confirm we found a Pleiadian, and the rings confirm we found Atlantis and Lemuria. We don't have to know where it is. It doesn't matter. And you know what? Please stop looking for them Atlantis. If you do find it, they may find other objects there, which you probably don't need to have, because we found a couple of them and all they've done is given us grief. I'm just telling people, whatever you find there, it's a poison chalice. You found it after it was broken.
I heard, just to jump in there, I remember listening to a chap called Gary Green many years ago. He was talking, he's a high-flying sort of financial socialite, talks a lot about ET-related things and that. But he was talking about Atlantis, and he had some advice. He says it's okay to look back and have a glance, but don't stare. Oh,
I like that.
Yeah. It's okay to have a glance, but don't stare, because there's a reason why we've shifted on from that. But hey, I've just had a question from someone in the audience, guys. I had a friend and client come to me for a Reiki session, and he just wanted to put this in. After Phil's Reiki session, I have been in touch with the Kiruru, which is a native New Zealand wood pigeon, which is, beautiful animal, very, very majestic, via his pendulum. And in return for gifting orgonite, I have been sent to collect, because he went around on a quest to build some orgonite and drop it around in certain parts of the forest, and that's what he was led to collect a small stone. So in return for gifting orgonite, I have been sent to collect a small stone from one place, and now place it in another location, take another small stone, and so on and so forth. So he's kind of like being taken, the stones are leading him to one place, but it's showing him another stone to take it to another place. And I think he was just curious, because, what we're talking about here is about these seemingly inanimate objects calling to people because they want to be relocated and that. So I'd love to hear, if you can share anything for Gino on this topic.
Well, he's right. The stones are actually are active now. The ones, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every stone on the planet is active. That would be crazy. I mean, that'd be chaos. But the ones that have been turned on, they can be turned on. And if he's been given that message, and I noticed the message was given via a bird, got to remember that's a really important way of getting a message. That's a confirmation that the message he's been given is correct. And are the stones being active at the moment? Absolutely. I have a stone that's been posted to me today, express post, and we'll probably get it tomorrow, from a person. That stone was killing them. Was making them go crazy. And she said, the person wrote to me and said, I could feel this huge surge of energy when I put the thing in the express post, and it was leaving me because it wanted to leave it, and it's coming to us now, and it's going to be a problem. Why is that the case? I mean, we had another stone I can think of. Remember the lady that rung us up and said, I picked up this stone, and it was underneath the power lines, and it was at a place called Chinchilla. Now, you guys in New Zealand may not know where that is, but that's fracking central for Australia, for the Southern Hemisphere. There's more holes there are than any rabbit warren you're ever going to find. And she dragged this rock away from there, underneath the power lines, and took it back to her house. And when she woke up the next morning, all 4 of their machines were broken. All the machinery in the house was broken, and she was bleeding through the nose. The rock was going to kill her. Absolutely going to kill her. And she rang us up and told us what was going on. And we were doing a presentation at the Gold Coast, and she came to it and showed us the rock. And I said, it's a male rock. I said, you're a female. I said, the rocks have been turned on right now. You're a female holding a male rock. It'll kill you. Mm. And she said, well, what do I do?
Is there any way you can make peace with the...
No, you can, and I did. That's what I'm getting at. You can make peace with them, but you've got to remember, the rock wanted to be saved. It didn't want to be underneath the high-tension power lines, and called out to her. actually called out. She said, it called me. I didn't even look for it. It called me. I went over to it and found it and picked it up. So, of course you did. You saved it. Well, why would it kill me? I said, because it's addicted to protocol. Protocol is you're a woman, and this is a male rock. And you know what male rocks do when women pick them up? It kills them. It was killing her. And anyway, I said to her, think about this. Either give it to me because we're going to put it on a sacred site. She knew that. Or give it to an elder there. And she came back to me 10 minutes later and said, I've been told by the rock if we drove home, we'll die in a car accident. Will you please take the rock? So I did. Anyway, I put the bed alongside me, the rock alongside me the first night, and I woke up and there's blood all over the pillow. I thought, oh, here we go. It's on. We're going to fight with this rock. My wife wasn't very happy because it's hard to get blood out of sheets. You've got to use nappy sand, and she wasn't very happy. She cleaned it up. Then I went to bed the next night, blood all over the sheets and the pillow slip. She wasn't very happy at all. So I'm sleeping with all these towels underneath me now. And it went on for a week. But I was giving it ceremony and putting it near healing rocks. And after a week, I stopped bleeding and it calmed down. You can calm them down, but you've got to give them rock ceremony and you've got to find out what their problem is and then deal with it. And I know that this sounds like I'm talking like it's something like a human characteristic. Well, it is, because the rocks we're talking about, they absorb our DNA. So the rock that this gentleman is in contact with is giving information where rocks need to be placed in certain areas so that they can create portals, create energy lines for what's going to take place. So by all means, don't question what the rocks have asked you to do. One thing I've learned about these rocks is if they give you an instructions, under no conditions ignore it, because I've worn the ramifications of that.
A few times, actually.
The rocks have nearly killed me 3 or 4 times because they've given an instruction and I haven't done it. And they don't suffer fools well. So that's the drawback with them. So this person has done the right thing by doing what they've been asked to do. I will congratulate them for that and put it to them that the rocks found this gentleman or lady, I'm not sure who it is, but whoever they found.
Gentleman.
Sorry? Gentleman?
Cap, yeah.
Okay. He was deserving of it. The rocks wouldn't call out to anyone. They would have they find their marks. Half the rocks we've got were found by people, majority, 90% of them are women. And you're going to hear the same story. They always start like, I'm going to tell you a story you won't believe. And I'm going to say, if you hadn't told me the story, I wouldn't believe you. You're going to tell me the rocks called you. Yeah, but I was just walking in the water knee deep and I was told to bend down in the sand and I buried down and there it was. I said, no, that's normal. That's normal. So if you've been told to do something by the rock and you do it, you come out of it well. If you don't do it, you come out of it badly. He's done the right thing, so he'll get a reward for that because he's doing a job. Keep doing it, because remember what I said before. We thought it was 5 sites that had to turn the world on. It's 6. There's 1 in New Zealand. God knows where it is, but some of your mob will, but we don't. It's none of our business anyway.
Right. Thank you so much for your feedback on that. And I mean, I'm also aware, because I have some other people that I've bumped into over the time who have been on similar quests to, I met a chap many years ago before I was aware of these topics who traveled from Greymouth to somewhere in the States, and he was telling me about a nephrite jade mask that had been found in Guatemala that was made of the same kind of jade that's only found in New Zealand. And that kind of piqued my interest there. But what he said was he took a whole bunch of Polnamu, which is our greenstone here in New Zealand, and he took it to put up this dry riverbed up over in the States. And he was just putting a piece there and a piece there. He was just walking up this dry riverbed and pushing there. He just had this calling to do this. I mean, it was apparently quite out of character for him, but he just said, "Man, I've just got to do this, right?" And I'm aware of I don't know if you're aware of our one of our local social historians here in New Zealand, Dr. Gary Cook. He's a cool dude. He's a great guy. But I was talking to him about because him and another chap, Hamish Miller, who's passed on now, a geomancer that did a lot of travel around New Zealand, mapping out sacred sites with dowsing rods and tracing the energy patterns. And they had to go on people's property and that. I know that some of the people who may be feeling called to this work are a little bit nervous about going on to other people's property to do this kind of thing. And so, anytime somebody says something to me, I go, well, look at the others that have come before you. And I think you'd find that if you reached out to the people that own these properties, chances are they might actually be cool with it. I mean, what's generally your take on this when approaching people who are you might think you might be a bit different.
Yeah, well, that's true, because actually you just got to be careful how you explain it to them. I always found the best way to do it is we carry two hats, scientific and mystical. When I meet someone for the first time we're going on the country, I don't really tip the mystical hat at all. I just do science and explain to them why it's important. And the next thing I always explain is that we believe in absolute anonymity, and we don't trust the government. We don't trust any group. So our job is to report information that's there, not to take it, not to manipulate it. And if you tell people you're just coming for science and you don't want to, because most farmers are worried, and we hear this every time, don't we? Oh, they're going to take my land away. Right? And they're understandably worried about that. And they feel the government doesn't have that right. Yeah, that'll be the thing. But what you'll also find, if you talk to that farmer, and I remember when we had the original agreement with the farmer that owned the Standing Stone site, we told him we don't want his land. We just want the right to do ceremonies, and he gave it, didn't he, Evan? He agreed to it. He was quite open about that. Of course you can. You can come in there and do your songs, do your ceremonies. Quite happy with that. And then when he died, his son took over and reneged and said, I'm not honouring my father's promise. But that's a different issue. But my point was, we went and saw the first guy I went and saw him about 8 times. You form a relationship with that person and you make it clear you're not trying to take anything from them. You'll find that nearly all the farmers want to learn more about their land. I mean, they're tied to their land. People might not get that as much, but most farmers have a love for their land. That's why they're there. They're not there to make shitloads of money, because most farmers don't do that. And if you show them that you've got the same respect for their land and all you want to do is honour it, and then if you write about it, I mean, we wrote about a lot of properties, but I'd always put clues in. I'd always put a clue in if I was given a direction, and people would be looking 400 k's away from where it was. Because it's not their business. They need to appreciate what's there. But they don't need to be there. That's not the important part. That something exists is important. You don't need to know where it is. You can see it. You've read the story. You don't need to be there. So if you do that, they'll let you on. As long as they know that you're not dragging the government in later on. Because if you tell them, look, if I find something, I've got to report to the government, guess what?
Yeah, no.
You're not welcome. You know that. You're not welcome anymore. They're going to look at it and say, there's the door.
And and I totally get it on that, because there is that fear of that happening. But I've just got to ask as well. In your wealth of experience on this particular topic, any places that you've visited or that others have visited who have performed ceremony and ritual and paid honors to the land and practiced these rites, these sacred rites, have you been aware of any notable improvement and the land around it, and the farmer's relationship with the land? Has the farmer come back to you and said, man, I don't know what you guys did, but my corn's growing higher, or I don't know, just anything like that, just to throw it out there?
Yeah, I can answer that in a really indirect way.
I think I know what
you know what I'm going to say.
Yep.
I got a mate of mine to play tennis with, right? And he's a nice bloke, and he's a bit open to the stuff we're talking about, but very pragmatic. And he's got this shop, and it's on a main road out of Lismore somewhere. And he told me that they were doing okay, but they felt they should have done better. So they called in a guy called Trevor. You know what I'm talking about, don't you?
Yeah.
He's a rock whisperer. Okay, now he doesn't use the rocks we've got. He just uses rocks with energy. And he said, no, the energy in your farm is on your property is completely wrong, because it was actually 4 shops he put in the middle of the country. Right, and it's just a road, and people weren't coming. He said, it's wrong. They can't even see your place. And Ian looked at him like, what are you talking about? He said, but if I put these 4 rocks in formation, that will change the energy of the whole of your place here, and you will find people will come. Well, now when I play in, he actually curses that guy, because from the time that happened, his profits have gone up. Within a year, his profits have gone up about 35%, and many people came in and said the same thing to him. I'd driven past this place so many times, I hadn't even seen it. He got that story time after time after time. Now, this guy goes around the country, and this is what he does. He takes rocks and puts them in formation to create balance and harmony within the farm. And all of a sudden, there's so many stories about Trevor, aren't they? In fact, he's put up, I remember we met him one time when we were doing a presentation, and so was he. And everyone around him, guess what? All the scientists think he's a load of crap, but everyone pays him to come to their property. And all they do is they say it works, and he's got a full-time job now. That's what he does for a living. But he doesn't write papers, ladies and gentlemen, and he hasn't put his stuff up for scientific review because he doesn't need to, because it works. Now, why it works, you ask Ian, and he'll tell you. I don't understand. It doesn't make any sense to me. It gives me all the rational reasons why it can't work, and I keep saying, but Ian, it does work. Yeah, it does. No, it's in fact, now he's got to the stage where they're trying to sell the place because they're so overworked. He's really getting run down. He actually curses the fact that this guy did this, because before they were just cruising. But now he said, I can't even keep the staff up to it. He said, it's just gone ballistic. He's probably making, he told me, now I'm so rich now that I'll never need money. But that's because this guy put 4 rocks. He showed me where they are. And you know what they look like? Just 4 igneous rocks, no special marks on them. They aren't silcons. They haven't been marked in a special way. They're just rocks. But together they make an energy line, and that energy line means that people can see the shop. And that's actually a fact, and that comes from a shopkeeper, not a hippie, a guy that's making a shitload of money because he paid Trevor to bring 4 rocks onto his property and gave him a couple $100 for it. And now he's made probably, couple of 100,000 extra per year because of those rocks.
And just, I just want to say to the audience who might be looking upon this, quite skeptically, and that, look, there are so many interesting things that you can play with to give you very, very surprising results. I mean, a friend bought a vacuum cleaner. The vacuum cleaner, they drove it all the way back from the shop, and it was a long way. It's about an hour because they live out in the Wops, out in the woods and that. And they drove all the way, the vacuum got up home and it didn't work. And they were talking to me, and I said, well, just try this out. And they tried everything. And he's an engineer, and she can pull a lawnmower to bits and put it back together again, and they're all good. And they're trying to make it work in the damn shop, or I don't even know if it worked in the damn shop. But it was a brand new one, and it just wouldn't work. And they're trying everything, plugging it in, resetting everything that he was going online, all the research. And I said, you've had a bit of turmoil in the house in the last, few months. Why don't you do a clearing? Well, how do I do that? And I said, I just gave. Can you hear me all right?
I can't hear properly. Can
you hear me okay?
Now I can, yeah. I couldn't before when your ear thing fell out. So, yeah.
No, so my friends, I said to them, why don't you try clearing? And they're like, okay, well, why not, So I guess they're just going to grab an incense stick and just light it up, and then just go around the perimeter of the house, inside the house, light it all around, and be really grateful and stuff. I kind of made it up as a clearing ritual. And then I get a call back. I did what you said. And then the vacuum cleaner started to fire.
Well,
it's worth trying these, right?
Yeah, so what you're trying to show to people is that the rocks do have, I suppose we're going to get pretty close to finishing up, but let me close with an absolute true story about what energy rocks actually have, and the fact that they can travel around the whole planet within minutes. Okay, and this is a true story because Evan knows which one I'm talking about, don't you? Okay, this happened. Can you guys hear us okay there?
Yeah, I can hear you fine. Yep.
Oh, good, yeah, because your voice was dropping. That's a bit better now, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, this is what happened. I was away for a while, and Evan came back, and he'd been cursed again. We've been cursed many times. In fact, Evan is one in front of me. I've done 7. He's been cursed 8 times. I'm winning. He's winning by 1. Well, he started this. I'm gone.
Trophy for that.
Oh, well, he does. He gets an extra point. I'm gone for him. They come back and he's been cursed. He got cursed, not me, just him again. Yeah. And I end up getting cursed off him after a while, but it was his curse, so it's his fault. And he said, I've been cursed, and it was an elder from West Australia, wasn't it? Yeah. And he said he's going to kill Evan. And I said, oh, great, here we go again. This has happened a lot of times by then. And I said, oh, right, okay. I said, how you feel? And he was a bit sick, weren't you? A bit crook that night. And I thought, look, let's just forget it. I'm done with this. I'm so sick of being cursed. Well, because I've nearly been killed a couple of times, and so has he. So we know it works. But I thought this was a weak one. Anyway, I went to bed that night, and I was a bit crook. I wasn't feeling 100% either. And I thought, hang on, it was the same symptoms. I thought, oh, it's a moderate curse. Look, we won't worry about it. Then I went to tennis the next day. And I'd been playing tennis before, and I'd collapsed basically on the court and nearly died on the court, and people thought I was going to die then. And I got better, and from those other curses, and lo and behold, I'm playing some guy that I should beat first to 21 points, and I'm up about 17-1, and I lost 21-17. And I couldn't walk in the finish, and I had to forfeit and go home, and I realised the curse had happened again. And it made me sick, and I thought, driving home, I thought, I'm done with this. We've been cursed so many times now. I'm fed up with it. So I got home, and I said to Evan, we're going to contact old mate, and we're going to tell him the curse is off. And what I did was, I've got 3 killing rocks. Now, when all the rocks go back into country, and they're placed in Ramangeri country, and we've agreed to that, nobody, no elder in the country wants those rocks, do they? They're just foul. They just kill. They're evil. And I said to him, I said, mate, I contacted him. I said, I've tried to reason with you first, didn't I? I said, don't be stupid. Don't. Blackfellas don't curse people over internet. And it was because this blackfella was swearing at someone. We've got a rule, if you swear, you get kicked out. We don't like people swearing at anyone, no matter what they say. If they swear on our Facebook line, they're thrown out. Well, he got really blurry. Anyway, I tried to reason with him, and he just was really nasty to me. And then primarily what he said, he cursed me too. He said he's going to kill me, and he told me the next time I touch an original object, I'll die. So anyway, I wrote back and said, I've got good news and bad news. So the good news is I'm going out the back, and you know I'm the keeper of the rocks, and I've got 3 rocks that just kill, and I can put them in formation and turn them on, and I can. And I said, I'm going to send them on to you. I said, the good news is if I go out there and I don't come back, I'm dead, and you're fine, and you were right. The bad news is if I come back and I'm not dead, you got a problem because they're looking for you. So anyway, I sent that, and Evan said at the time, didn't you? Look, why don't you just wait for a day? Yeah, give him a bit of time.
A bit of time, you know. It's the other side of the country.
No, he's the other side of the country. He said, no, mate, he's paying attention to this. I went and set him up. I know which the rocks are, and Evan knows them. And every time we've been cursed, they call out to me, don't they, Evan?
Yeah, they're the only ones I hear from.
And they always call out and say, use me, but we didn't. But this time we did. We're sick of being asked, and we did. And I basically told them, do your business. Now, their business is only one thing, killing. That's all they do. The elders have told me these things are evil personified. Anyway, I got back there. I put them up, and I got back, and within 2 minutes from West Australia, we got a comment, turn the rocks off, turn them off, turn them off. I'm going to stop the curse now. And then further on, he said, tomorrow I'm going to kill you, Evan, and my wife, didn't he? And I wrote back and said, mate, that's a Clayton's turning off of the curse. That's like saying I'm not racist, but you can't say I've turned it off, but you're all going to die tomorrow. I said, no, the rocks are staying in formation. He wrote back again and begged me to turn it off because it was hurting him really big time because he'd be dead in half an hour. We knew that. We told him, you only got half an hour to make your mind up. And he said, I've turned off the curse, turn off the curse. Please do it. Please turn it off, turn it off. So I went and actually, I can turn them off. I can put them in a way where they don't do anything, and they did. And then I came back and I said, they're off. And then he wrote back, and I remember what he wrote back, didn't he? Yeah. He said, great, now leave me alone. Leave me alone. Right, okay, after what you've done. But here's the point, ladies and gentlemen. You think rocks don't have an energy? All I did was tell those rocks who the person was. And now he was living around about 4,500 k's from where we live. We live in Byron Bay on the east coast, the easterly part of Australia. They live in Western Australia on the most westerly part. That's from London to Moscow. And within 2 minutes, they found him. And they were killing him. And he begged me to turn it off. And by the way, he's fine now. But here's the rub in this. I wrote an article. It was called, For Those About to Curse Us, We Salute You. It was based on a Colosseum album in the 1960s called For Those About to Die, We Salute You. It was actually a great jazz rock album. And it was written to everyone there, and I said this, the rocks are now in permanent formation. If you curse us, we won't be able to intervene because we'll never know. And within half an hour, you'll be dead, so don't do it. And guess what? We've never been cursed since, have we?
Yeah, well, not that we know of.
No, that's true. Not that we know of. And if we have been cursed, they're not there anymore. And it's not our problem anymore because we didn't do it. We told everyone don't do it because we knew there were other people who were going to do it. They don't anymore. So, ladies and gentlemen, rocks have an energy. If they can find an individual, and now they're actually guards and they're learning something different about what they can do. They can be defenders rather than attackers. If you don't think rocks have an energy, bring up the guy in West Australia and talk to him about that, and he'll tell you they have an energy, and that energy is so powerful that you can't contradict it. So it depends on the rock, but if the rock has been given that energy, it's still there to this day and will never disappear. So yeah, no, it's like that gentleman before that's been given a task by the rock. Do it, because when you do what you're supposed to do, well, they don't kill you anymore. They don't trip you in front of a semi-trailer, and they don't make your skin fall apart, and they don't throw you down a cliff, do they? So it's much better to listen to them.
Yep.
It sounds almost a little bit tyrannical.
Oh, it has been, honestly, mate. I'll tell some stories. I mean, some of the things that have happened to me. I remember on one occasion we took the rocks to Ramangeri country, and we left behind about 15. And the ones that came back, oh, man, they were not happy, I can tell you. And I remember the next morning I was trying to get across Sydney, getting across to the airport, and there was all these trucks and cars, and I had 2 bags, 60 kilos of rocks in them. And I got them behind me like that, trying to get across, and I could see this semi way off in the distance. There was a gap, and he slowed up and waved me to go across. So I started going across. He was slowing up. Got halfway across there, and both my feet were pulled out from underneath me. And I landed flat on the ground, put both my hands out, ripped all the skin off both of them. And I could see the semi-trailer slamming on the brakes and fishtailing from side to side as he came towards me. He stopped that close to my head. And I'm thinking, I know who did that. It was the bloody rocks, and they were just trying to remind me of the fact they were not happy about the fact they were taken away from Carter. But we've got over that. So, yes, I can tell you story after story. And let me close with this one. On one occasion, my wife was painting Ros's Rock 1, which is one of the most powerful rocks in the world. And she was painting it, made the mistake of touching it to move it to a better position. I was in another part of the house, and I knew straight away before she said anything. I yelled out, "What have you done?" She said, "I've touched the rock." She had this huge pain in her hand, and it was running up her arm. Would have killed her. And I had a healing rock, which everyone knows about, and I gave a ceremony, and we got rid of it. If I wasn't there, she'd been dead. And she's my wife, and the rocks knew that. So, but guess what? It's a male rock, and she's a female. So therefore, but this rock, the one I'm talking about, it's the strongest rock there ever is, or ever has been, according to the blackfellas. So that one, if you're a woman, you don't even brush that; it'll kill you. So yeah.
And conversely, a male picking up a female rock, is that also considered to be not a good thing?
That'd be worse if it's possible.
Oh, right. Okay.
That'd be worse. I mean, with a male rock, it'd kill the male quickly. Female rock would make an issue of the fact you should have known, man, not to touch me. Don't forget, women's magic is more powerful than men's magic. All Indigenous people know that. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, I got one curse from being invited into a women's site.
Yeah.
And it was a long, drawn-out process that was going to take years.
Yeah.
Whereas the male one would be like, bang,
yeah,
female one.
Yeah, male one, smash you in the face and you're done with it. Female one, no, man, you don't want that. No, nobody wants female. That's why we've got some female rocks, and it's funny that the women, the elders in particular, number 2, they just sort of lust over it when they first see it. Can I touch it? And a couple I've let them touch because it's a woman's rock. If a male touched that rock, they'd be dead. But it'll be slow. It'll be slow. Dell was going to be killed quickly. She would have been dead in 3 minutes. It would have been done. Same with this ring. It would have done them very quickly. But the female ones, no, you don't. You don't. Men should never go near female magic. It's suicide by 1,000 cuts.
Okay. Well, on that happy note, well, thank you so much, guys, for coming on today. It's always a pleasure to have the two of you on and sharing. Obviously, this is for some of the viewers. This is I cover some pretty interesting topics, and I think this is one realm that people are, I guess, are opening up a little bit more too, especially now that, you know, the blatant symbolism used in mainstream media television programming on Netflix and stuff is really putting ideas forward about maybe there is something more going on. And so I'm very grateful, guys, because I know you're on a, you know, you're pretty busy and there's a lot going on. But I just wanted to give you this opportunity to let us know about anything that's coming up that you'd like to share, that you know, people might want to be part of. Whether it's any seminars, webinars, any talks you're doing, any books you're releasing, anything of that nature.
Well, basically,
yeah, it's chapter 3 of our Alien Ancestry. So if you go to our Alien Ancestry.net, that will have all the information about the speakers and the times and all of that, links to get a ticket. Yeah, so we've got a good lineup.
We've got a really diverse lineup, and for me, we're going to be talking a lot about one of the greatest individuals, old way people there ever was. And I think that's a great story. You're going to hear things about that, about this particular gentleman, which mainstream would call miracles. And I remember when I spoke, and let me close with this, I spoke to an elder once about something Kano did. And I think Darren might be going to be talking about that one. He's going to talk about one of them. I remember saying to Wirichan once, one of the things Kano did, and I told him about that, and he said that was Kano's party trick. And I'm thinking, okay, disappearing in front of 10 people, including Graham Hancock, and then reappearing 50 meters in another direction in front of all of us is a party trick. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if that's an old way party trick, I reckon the old way of doing things is such an important way of reconnecting with a time when our DNA, we've got DNA in there that we've never used. The reason why Kano could do party tricks is because he used that DNA, and he made one point very clear, that every person on this planet has magic. And remember, let me close with this, original people believed when a child was born, every child had some degree of magic within them, and their job and their role in life was to cultivate and grow it. Today, the role of humanity is to forget it, to kill it, to stifle it, and deny it exists. Well, that's not how we should live. And if that's the way we're living, that's a new way that no one should ever go near. The old ways are, you want a choice between a flat screen TV and telepathy. Which one would you pick? You want a choice between disappearing in front of people or standing there all the time and never moving? Which one would you pick? Well, one of them's there for all of us. Carter made it clear, all the stuff we saw him do, and we saw miracles, didn't we, Evan?
We did, yeah.
Time after time, he said that every human on the planet can do this. Well, that's what this change is about. It's us reconnecting with what we are. We were magicians. We were all Merlins and Morganas. And we've got to do that again. That's what this is about, and that's what these conferences are about that change that's coming. So come and join us. We make it cheap. It's only $26. There's about 8 hours entertainment, and you got it for a week. You don't have to watch it all. And if there's someone there you don't like, because we've got one person that's a channeler, she's legit. We know her well. But if you don't believe in that stuff, that's okay. There's still 5 other talks, and it's not much. And honestly, I've seen what's on free-to-air TV. And you know what? I put free-to-air TV on at night when I'm writing. And you know what I put on? I put the radio station on, Double J. There's no visuals. I just listen to music because I can't find a thing on free-to-air that I would be prepared to watch because there's nothing to watch. Well, we're giving you 8 hours and you can watch it over a week, and it's much better than repeats of Friends. And that's about as good as it gets on free-to-air. It's just appalling, the TV that's there. So we'll give you something new.
And we aim to do that
every month. Every month up until December the 21st. We'll finish what we might try and squeeze one in halfway through December. I don't know if we can or not, but that's it. We're leading up for that. And after the event, well, that's another story. I don't know how that'll go. We'll work that out then. Once again, mate, thank you so much for asking us on. And we're really keen to talk to Victoria, God.
A bit further south than that, bro. Bit to the right too, or a bit to the left, depending on which way you're coming from.
You guys, nobody goes to Melbourne now, mate. Everyone wants to go to New Zealand. One day soon, we're going to come there again, definitely. So thanks, mate. Appreciate you asking us on, and come and join us on that talk. It'll be good fun.
Yeah, that sounds great. And so just to all the viewing audience out there, thank you so much. And thank you so much to Stephen and Evan. I'll let you guys go and carry on with your important work. And thank you once again. And I just want to say a big happy birthday to Solretta, because it's her birthday today, of course. Evan knows this. And so I just thought I'd put a dig in at the end there. So thank you guys. All right, you guys have a great day and weekend, and we'll no doubt connect again very soon. All the best.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
it. Cheers, guys.
Enjoy that. It's good. Okay.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to this this edition of Thread to Threshold with Stephen and Evan. And I really hope you enjoyed this. There were some pretty interesting topics, I thought. And please don't forget, if you're really enjoying this podcast, I'd love any support in the form of send me an email to encourage me or drop some comments or that. But please also feel free to make a donation. I've got a PayPal address there too, and in the description I'll also put an option for Kiwi people who might want to do a direct bank transfer or something. I'm all very, very appreciative of it all, and thank you so much. And and we'll see you soon. Hopefully I'll be advertising some new interviews coming up in the next week or so. You guys take it easy.